Alright guys, let's talk about this main event. Brandon Moreno versus Steve Erceg. And look, let's just call it what it is. This fight doesn't make a whole lot of sense from a divisional standpoint. Like, why the hell is Steve Erceg fighting Brandon Moreno? This isn't a number one contender bout. Moreno's not getting a title shot if he wins this. He can't. Not with how stacked the top of the flyweight division is right now. And not with how the UFC is already screwing up the division by giving Kai France a title shot, which by the way is absolutely ridiculous, no disrespect, but how do you lose 2 in a row, finally get a win, and suddenly you're back in a title fight? Make it make sense. Anyways, back to his matchup. Moreno is in this fight because Steve Erceg called for it. After beating Matt Schnell, Erceg didn't call out Pantoja, didn't ask for a top 5 guy. He called out Brandon Moreno. And at that time, that made some sense. Moreno had just lost to Royval, and it felt like a fun, relevant matchup. But the landscape has changed a lot since then. Erceg was supposed to fight Albazi. That didn't happen. Albazi ended up getting booked with Manel Cap. So now Erceg's reward, a main event against one of the best flyweights on the planet. Since he called out Moreno a while back, he lost 2 fights. One to Pantoja, where he was competitive but still clearly lost, and one to Kai France, who caught him early and knocked him down twice before finishing him. Meanwhile, Brandon Moreno has bounced back big time. He dominated Albazi from start to finish, clean 50-45 across all 3 judges' scorecards. Now maybe that says more about Albazi than it does about Moreno. Maybe Albazi was a bit overrated, but either way, Moreno looked sharp, he looked focused, he looked like a guy who's still at a top tier flyweight. And let's be honest, this is a real tough matchup for Erceg. If we're gonna be real, it just felt like the UFC needed a headliner for Mexico City, and Erceg was available. He already asked for this fight and he said yes, and here we are. Now, to be fair, Erceg isn't bad, not at all. He's solid everywhere, he doesn't make huge mistakes, and he's tough. He had a moments against Pantoja, but we saw in that fight, when things get gritty, Pantoja would take over. I would argue that Pantoja outstriked him, outgrappled him, and eventually pulled ahead. It was an extremely close fight though. Then you look at his fight against Kai France. Erceg got clipped bad. It didn't even take that long, you know? And look, man, I don't buy the idea that Erceg's going to outstrike Moreno. Moreno's chin is ridiculous. He's hard to hit clean, and he's got way more volume. Plus, if Moreno wants to, he can wrestle Erceg. We saw Pantoja do it. That's clearly a path. Erceg has decent jiu-jitsu, but Moreno's top control, pressure, and ability to mix in damage makes them a dangerous game. So yeah, look, Moreno's just better, more experience, tougher schedule, proven cardio, and now he's fighting at elevation in front of his home crowd. That's huge. Even if Erceg has improved, he's gonna be dealing with that pace, pressure, and altitude all at once. I think the fight's gonna go like this. Moreno is gonna win majority of the striking exchanges, mix in some wrestling, and just drown Erceg over the course of 5 rounds. Maybe he gets a late finish, maybe it's a decision, but it's hard to see Erceg pulling this one off unless Moreno just completely fumbles the game plan, which feels very unlikely in my opinion, because Moreno isn't just a volume striker or just a wrestler or just a pressure guy. He's one of the few fighters who can do everything at once and do it with purpose. He's not just walking forward like a zombie, he's calculated chaos. He's feigning low to bring your hands down, then throwing a 1-2 high. He'll dip like he's shooting and coming back up with a hook. He's consistently forcing you to make defensive reads, and if your defense isn't airtight for 25 minutes, he's gonna find them holes. And that's where Steve Erceg's problem starts. We've already seen Erceg struggle when he's being pressured, and not even by elite volume guys. That Kai France fight was a red flag. Kai, who isn't a cardio machine like Moreno, isn't as unpredictable, but he still found a way to hit Erceg's chin multiple times. And what did Kai do? He just stayed composed, didn't overextend, and waited for Erceg to come forward recklessly. Boom! Clean counter over the top. 2 knockdowns in under 5 minutes. Fight's done. That's a big problem. Now insert Brandon Moreno in that same picture and it gets worse in my opinion. Moreno doesn't just wait, he's consistently building pressure. He'll touch you with a jab, rip a low kick, level change for a takedown, and even if you stuff it, he's back on you with a combo. The guy's like a rhythm breaker. You can't get comfortable, you can't settle in your striking, and you sure as hell can't coast on the outside. And that's one of the things that really get overlooked about Moreno, and it's gonna matter here. Is how fluid he mixes things up. Like we talk about how he'll shoot for a takedown in the middle of a striking exchange, and that messes with guys. You have to start second guessing your punches. Are you defending a cross or a blast double? Are you checking a kick or are you trying to dig underhooks? He just keeps you in a mental blender. And let's talk about the cardio too, because Mexico City elevation is no joke. Go ask Cain Velasquez how real it is. Guys who aren't used to that elevation feel it hard, especially by round 3. You start seeing the hands drop, footwork slow down, shots come in late, and you think Steve Erceg, who's never fought in altitude, is going to keep up with Brandon freaking Moreno, who can throw 20 punch combos and shoot takedowns for 25 minutes? Nah, that's not happening. And even if Erceg has a good round, like a first good round, let's say he's sharp early, maybe he lands a few clean shots. What happens when Moreno is still there in his face at the start of round 2? Still bouncing like he's firing, still feigning, and now you're breathing heavy. That's when Moreno starts snowballing. You get overwhelmed. He doesn't need one big punch. He chips away. He stacks volume. He forces grappling exchanges. He pushes the pace where your defense can't keep up. And let's also not forget that Moreno's durability is insane. Like, generally, it's elite. I mean, Figgy is one of the hardest punches in the division's history. He hit him with bombs, and Moreno didn't even flinch. He took shots from Royval, from Pantoja, from Kai Kara France. He's never been finished with strikes. So what's Erceg gonna do here? He doesn't have that one-shot knockout power. He's not going to out-cardio Moreno. He's not going to dominate him in the grappling. And on the feet, if he's not controlling the pace, it's going to turn into a beatdown. And I'll add this too. Moreno's jab and straight right are going to be a problem in this fight, especially with that 2-inch reach advantage. It's not just a stat on the graph. He actually uses his reach. He knows how to keep guys at the end of his shots. That jab from Moreno is clean. It's fast. And if Erceg gets predictable, trying to close the distance, he's going to be eating it all night. Now look, I'm not here to completely write off Steve Erceg. He's a very technical sound striker. He keeps a tight guard, doesn't get wild with his punches, and he throws straight shots down the pipe. If Moreno comes in sloppy, overly aggressive, or underestimates him early, Erceg can land clean. He's not a power puncher, but his timing is solid. He also switches stance as well and uses his jab to maintain distance. And that's something Moreno has struggled with in the past against guys like Royval, who can keep that long and awkward. And while we haven't seen it much in the UFC yet, Erceg does have a strong grappling base. That was his bread and butter before he made it to the big show. He's got slick back takes, decent transitions, and he's comfortable in scrambles. If he gets Moreno's back or finds an early takedown, that can shift momentum, at least temporary. Also, Erceg is calm under pressure. He doesn't panic, even when he's getting hit. That's a valuable trait in a 5-round fight, especially against someone like Moreno who pushes a brutal pace. There's a chance that Erceg weathers the early storm, makes adjustments, and starts having moments if Moreno gets overconfident. But, and it's a big but, even with all that being said, I still think this fight leans heavily towards Brandon Moreno. Erceg's best tools just don't line up favorably over 5 rounds. Moreno has the better gas tank, the better chin, the better experience, and the sharper overall game. And that matters way more when you're fighting in Mexico City at elevation in a high-paced main event. So yeah, Erceg will have some moments, maybe land some nice straight shots early, maybe even threaten with a takedown or two, but over the time, Moreno's pressure, volume, and composure are going to take over. It'll be competitive in spots, but I think by the 3rd round, we're watching Moreno pull ahead and put a stamp on. And look, man, I'm going to be honest here. I'm not happy about the idea of seeing Steve Erceg losing this fight. I like the guy, I like his style, I think he carries himself well, he's respectful, and there's something really promising about him. But I just feel like the UFC kind of tossed him to the wolves here, and that's not even necessarily his fault. I don't think Steve asked for this title shot out of nowhere. It's more like, let's be real, Pantoja ran through most of the top of the division, he's already beaten Moreno twice, and he just outlasted Royval in a gritty, grindy fight. The UFC had to look somewhere else, and Erceg was coming off a solid win, but man, it feels a little early, like it was too much too soon. Sure, he had a close fight with Pantoja, but styles make fights. Pantoja's not a super dangerous striker, but his bread and butter is the grappling, control, just wearing you down. And to Steve's credit, he hung in there, gave a good account for himself. But then you got guys like Kai Kara France who just came in there, flatlined him in the 1st round. That shows that at this level, one slip can cost you everything. Now he's going up against Brandon Moreno, and yeah, Moreno doesn't have that one-shot knockout power like Kai, but the dude is a pressure machine. He's experienced, he's sharp, and he knows how to mix it up. He's gonna come forward, throw volume, and test your cardio, your heart, your fight IQ, and that's the thing. I feel bad because if Erceg loses here, that's 3 losses in a row. that's a rough spot to be in, especially for a guy who's still developing. And look, man, I'm hoping I'm wrong. I really do. I hope it's competitive. I hope Steve surprises everybody and we get a 5-round war. And look, man, I hope I'm wrong. I really do. I hope it's competitive. I hope Steve surprises everybody and we get a 5-round war. But this is MMA, the sport is chaos, you can break it down a million different ways, but when the cage door shuts, it's damn near a sanctioned street fight at that point. Anything can happen. I don't know if this is Steve Erceg's moment, you know?